Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today's a beautiful day, mid-October. I have a ton of different garden projects that I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to take you with me on two of them. Now, they will be two separate videos, but I want to show you what the first one is that I'm going to do. Now, I live in Utah Zone 6/7, and I just harvested my sweet potatoes a couple of weeks ago, and I have quite a few more winter plants that I had wanted to plant. Now, right now, it's really late to be planting them. I'm about a month late to be planting them, but I wanted to show you what I have, and we're just going to try it out and see how it works. So the first one I wanted to show you are my winter giant spinach. They've been in these pots for a long time. I purchased them about a month ago at Lambert Growers. I think it was the end of August, beginning of September, so it's been over a month. And they've just been languishing in these pots, although they look really quite good. They put on a lot of growth recently. I did add some fertilizer, but I wanted to plant them to grow over the winter. Now, I actually grow plants over the winter and harvest them all the time. I've done it for about 5 or 6 years now. And I've been using these kind of low hoop houses. This is one that Veggies sent me out. I use the Veggies raised metal beds, and I'm an affiliate, and I'll put my link down below. But this one has worked beautifully. We also have one that I've made myself that also works beautifully. So I like to plant plants underneath them. And I put floating road covers and greenhouse plastic over the top. And the plants last all winter long, especially here on the south side. Now, last year we did have a warmer winter, and my cabbage and everything that I put under here started flowering and bolting really early spring. It was probably February or March when they started bolting, and they had not sized up yet. So instead of closing everything up and putting floating row cover over the top of the spinach, because it is extremely hardy, I think what I'll do is I'll just plant it in this Veggies raised metal bed, put the plastic over the top, and then put the sides up. Now, next week is the week when I'm going to do the video of putting plastic over my hoop houses, because we are still in the 60s and the nights are in the high 40s. Last night we did get into the 30s, but it wasn't low enough to cause any damage to any of my plants. So I don't think we need the plastic on these yet, but we're going to plant them. So next week we'll put the plastic up, just in preparation for the colder temperatures I know are coming. Now, the other plants I have to plant, these are collards. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're doing really well here. I also purchased these from Lambert Growers, and they've just been sitting in their pots and putting on size. We've got some cabbage that's already started to head up while it's small. These may not do as well, but I'll plant these and see how they do. And then we've got some kale. So I think I will plant the collards with the spinach and the cabbage on their own, because I want to give them enough room, if they decide to grow, that they can get as big as they want. And I think I'll plant the kale with the cabbage. Now, the kale and cabbage are going to go into this bed. I have that little hoop house over there that I'm going to put over the top of them. But this bed needs a bit of preparation. This bed was full of sweet potatoes that didn't do very well. I'll link the video of harvesting my sweet potatoes up above. But one issue that I have found is my blue spruce trees over there continuously send a ton of roots into this bed, and it is just full of roots, and that may be one part of the problem I had with my sweet potatoes. So I've got my shovel and my pickaxe. We're going to go at this and remove as many of the roots as I can. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you is I have installed all my own drip irrigation. The very first beds that I put in, I had an irrigation guy come in and install drip irrigation. And when he did it, he made it so that we could flip the drip irrigation out of the beds and out of the way from when we worked on them. So I just replicated what he did, and all of my drip irrigation can be flipped out of the bed. I don't have to disconnect it. I can just flip it out of the bed and work on the bed, and then when that's done, I can put it back over the top. Now, this drip irrigation is not going to be useful over the winter. We have what's called secondary water here in Utah, and the city has already turned that off because you don't want your lines to freeze with water in them. Matter of fact, I actually had my irrigation guy come by today, and he blew all of the water out of the lines and completely turned off all of my irrigation. So it is winterized and ready to go. I'm going to have to hand water these beds over the winter. Now, hand watering over the winter is not as hard as it seems like it would be. these beds hold water quite well, and because of the temperatures and the shorter days, I usually only end up watering once every month or so. So let's get going and see what we are going to do first. Now I think I'm going to do the beds on the south side of my house first. They are going to be easier to do. I don't have to dig up the beds or anything. I don't really need to amend them that much other than to put more fertilizer in them. They held all my tomatoes all year. I just ripped those out, and the tomatoes are a heavy feeder, so it does need a lot of fertilizer. But I amended my beds really well this spring, so I'm not going to amend them again until next spring. So what I'm going to do is just rake the straw that's in there out of the way, put down some fertilizer, plant the plants, and then push the straw back over the top. I may add some more straw, but that will happen next week because that's what I'm working on next week. So I'm going to be amending some of my beds for the winter, planting my garlic, and I'll bring you along for that. So let's move the straw out of the way, get the fertilizer down, and get our plants planted. So the fertilizer I'm going to add is a little bit of plant tone because the tomatoes were such heavy feeders. And then some blood meal. The blood meal will add really good nitrogen because the leafy greens need nitrogen more than anything else. Now it took about 5 minutes. This bed is completely prepared and ready to go, and I'm really excited to get this planted. Now I'm going to plant the collards first because I want them in the back. They're not too root bound, but I am going to mess up the roots a little bit. And I think they're going to be so much happier being planted. They haven't liked it in these pots too much because it's been really hard to keep them watered. So we're going to dig a nice hole and just plant it the same depth it was in the pot. And then we'll do that with the rest of these. Now these look really good. They're not too root bound. The roots are growing out the bottom of the pot and they are looking great. So I think these should do just fine. Now they're watered in. All I have left to do is spread the hay over the top to hold more water in. And because we are still in the 60s and the upper 40s at night, I'm going to need to water these probably every day for the next few days. Now my secondary water has been turned off, but my culinary water, which is attached to my house, is still on. So I can unhook my hose, drain it out every night, and even if it freezes, my hose won't have any water in it, but the culinary water that's attached to my house does not freeze. So I'll be able to water these pretty easily with a hose. Now if it gets to the point where my hose is just frozen, I can always fill up buckets inside the house and bring them out and water these. But like I said, once they're established and the covers are over the top, they only need to be watered about once a month over the winter. So the mulch is back over the top, they're rinsed off, and like I said, I'll just keep these well watered until they're established. And then next week I think I'll put the plastic over the top with the sides open, just so that we are ready for any freezing temperatures that might come through. But these are all really, really cold hardy. Not cold hardy enough to withstand our winters, but they are cold hardy enough to be out under plastic. So now comes the part that I was dreading. I really hate digging roots out of planting beds. It takes a lot of energy that I just really don't have these days. But we're going to do it anyway because the rewards are worth it. So let's get the roots dug out, just get this chore over with, and be ready to plant. That wasn't as hard as I thought. I did clean this out in the spring, but when I was harvesting the potatoes, I thought I found a ton more roots. And there were a few, but I got them all out. Now I need to put the structure for the hoop house over the top, which is really easy and quick, and then we're ready to plant. Now before we get the top of it on, I wanted to show you why, number one, I wanted to put it together first before I planted, and then number two, how I do it. So each one of my little hoop houses that I made on my own, and they were custom made for the sizes of each bed. So some of them are smaller, some of them are larger, and I never know how much of a bed one is going to fill because I mix them all over the place. But what I've done is I've used PVC parts. I've glued them together. Some of them are coming apart. I need to glue them again. And I drilled holes in these corner pieces so I could put rebar through them. Now this top section will slide over the rebar, and I've never had an issue with these flying away in the wind. We get some pretty nasty winds here during the winter, and these hold up really, really well. They don't move, and it works really nicely. So there it is, all ready to go, ready to protect my plants over the winter. Now I'll link a video above on when I made these. It's been about 4 or 5 years since I've made them. So they've lasted really, really well. I have had to rebuild them a couple of times, but I haven't had to buy new parts. I've just had to glue them back together again. Some of them I've actually cut down smaller, some of them I've added more pipe to make them bigger. But all in all, they work really, really well. Now I've also built them so that I can build double hoop houses if I want to. But I found that our winters here are getting warm enough that I don't need the double layer hoop house. I just throw some row cover over the top of the plants if it's going to get extra cold, and they're fine. Now if I do need to have double hoop houses, if it looks like it's going to get extra cold, I can add an extra layer on the inside. The hoop houses are smaller, just small enough so that I could put the hoop house and the plastic on the inside, and then another hoop house and plastic on the outside. So that gives it a double layer extra protection, so if I want to grow things in really cold climates, it works. So now that we've got everything put together so that I'm ready to plant, let's get the plants planted. So my plants are planted, they're watered in. I haven't put straw over the top of these because that's going to be for another day. I've got another project that I'm going to bring you along for that I need to do a video for today, and I'm running out of daylight, so I need to get that project done. So the straw will be done later. Now it is nice that they're planted. It'll be interesting to see if they grow. They are going to do better than if I didn't plant them at all. And I would love to hear if you grow a winter garden in cooler climates. And if so, what do you grow? How do you cover them? And when do you plant them? So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.